Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really going beyond the usual headlines, behind the veil, you could say.
We really are.
We've been digging into some pretty explosive material directly from a former Pentagon official, someone right at the center of the government's UAP investigations.
Yeah, this individual ran ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Their insights are, well, they're giving us a rare look inside.
An unparalleled view, really, into secrets, into the physics, the mind-bending physics these things display.
That's right. And for you listening, especially if you've been following this topic, we're assuming a baseline here. We're moving past if UAPs are real.
Because the sources make it clear they are. These are real encounters, often in sensitive military airspace, involving technology that's just not ours, not conventional.
Exactly. So our mission today, what we want to unpack with you, covers three big interconnected areas. We're moving beyond just tracking objects.
Okay, what are those three pillars for today's deep dive?
First, we'll get into the the nuts and bolts, the technology, the unbelievable nature of UAPs and USOs, the underwater ones.
Right.
Hardware.
Sorry.
Second, and this is where it gets really complex, we need to tackle the controversial stuff, non-human intelligence, or NHI, psionics, and the documented biological effects, the adverse effects on people.
Which is a massive leap, isn't it? From just seeing fast-moving lights to actual biological impact and intelligence.
It absolutely is. And that leads us to the third area, the philosophical side. What does all this force us to confront about ourselves? About the limits of how we see the world?
And I suppose about how society needs to evolve.
Precisely. How we might need to change to even comprehend, let alone survive, this kind of reality.
Okay, let's dive in. We really have to start with the secrecy, don't we? Why lock this away for so long? Because it feels like it goes way beyond just national security concerns.
Oh, it does. Way beyond. To understand the secrecy, you really have to go back to the period right after World War II. That's when this became a serious institutional headache for the U.S. government.
The U.S. was briefly the sole nuclear superpower, but that didn't last long.
No, it didn't. The Soviets developed their own bomb incredibly quickly, and boom, the Cold War starts.
And the source described that not as open conflict, but as a hidden game.
An invisible chess match.
Yeah.
High stakes, constant maneuvering, always trying to figure out what the other side knew or didn't know.
So in that kind of atmosphere, the first reason for classifying UAP stuff makes a sort of cold, logical sense, hiding weakness.
Exactly. You classify it to hide your intelligence gaps. If you're seeing technology doing things you can't explain, things that defy physics as you know it.
It means you don't own it, and you probably don't understand it.
Right. And admitting that openly.
Yeah.
That just hands a massive advantage of vulnerability straight to your main adversary. So the layer one of the secrecy was pure geopolitics.
Yeah.
Don't let the Soviets know what we don't know about these things.
But it didn't stay just geopolitical, did it? The risk escalated. You mentioned this incredible, almost unbelievable detail from the 60s about nuclear deconfliction.
Yeah, this is chilling, actually. It shows just how seriously they took this threat, even back then, right at the top.
Both sides were setting up early warning radar for nuclear attack.
Correct, and they quickly realized, uh-oh, what if one of these UAPs flying around gets mistaken for an incoming nuke?
The consequences are unthinkable. Global annihilation based on a mistaken blip on a screen.
So they had to do something. They set up a back channel, a deeply secret memo between the U.S. and the Soviet Union.
What did it say?
Essentially, it was an agreement. Look, if your radar picks up something really weird, something anomalous, right before you're about to launch your missiles, maybe give us a call first on this special hotline.
Just in case.
Just in case it's not actually an incoming warhead, but one of these things, a UFO. The fact that they formalized that, built a protocol around non-human tech potentially triggering nuclear war, that tells you this wasn't some fringe idea. It was a baked-in reality shaping global military strategy decades ago.
Wow. That just sets the stage perfectly for the next phase, which feels even more troubling. Classifying it not to protect from enemies, but to protect the government from its own people.
This is where it gets really insidious.
Yeah.
The focus shifts inward. The government started commissioning these studies, asking point blank, what happens if we tell the public the truth about UAPs?
And the answers they got back were not good.
Not good at all. The studies predicted disaster, mass panic, basically, the collapse of civil society, as they put it.
What were the specific fears? What did they think would actually happen day to day?
They worried people would just lose it. lose faith in their religions, their fundamental beliefs about reality, but also, and maybe more importantly for the government.
They lose faith in the government itself.
Exactly. Lose confidence in the government's ability to protect them or even tell them the truth. And then the practical stuff kicks in. Would people stop paying taxes? Would they refuse to fight in wars if they knew the government had been lying on this scale about something this fundamental?
So telling the truth was deemed destabilizing, and the decision was made. Keep it quiet. Treat the public like they can't handle it.
Which, of course, requires building a massive system for keeping secrets. And systems like that, well, they rarely stay clean.
They get abused.
Almost inevitably. The classification system designed for national security quickly became a tool to hide other things. Malfeasance or compartmental embarrassment, as the source put it.
Meaning they started using the secrecy built for UAPs to cover up unrelated government crimes or screw-ups.
Absolutely. The source points to historical patterns that back this up. Think about Iran-Contra, how long that was hidden, or the use of torture at places like Guantanamo Bay.
Those secrets weren't kept for vital security reasons in the end?
No. They were kept because officials were embarrassed, or worse, had broken the law and didn't want the public or Congress to know. The UAP secrecy infrastructure provided the perfect cover, the perfect excuse to bury all sorts of other uncomfortable truths.
And you mentioned that analogy about secrets aging. That really hits home for this situation now, doesn't it?
It really does. The point is, secrets aren't like fine wine. They don't improve over time.
They're like vegetables.
Exactly. They're perishable. You keep them locked away too long, past their actual need-to-know date for security, and they start to rot. They stink. The cover-up becomes a bigger problem, a bigger scandal than whatever the original secret was.
Like the JFK files or like this UAP situation now, the issue isn't just, hey, there are weird things flying around. It's, hey, the government has systematically lied about it for 70-plus years.
And that's the bind they're in. Telling the truth now means admitting decades of deception, which risks the very loss of public faith they were trying to avoid in the first place.
It almost validates every conspiracy theory out there.
It does. But continuing the lie just makes the suspicion worse, makes the eventual reckoning even bigger. It's a terrible position.
And that pressure, that desperation to keep the lid on, leads to the really toxic part. Going after the whistleblowers, targeting people inside the system who try to bring this out legally.
This is maybe the clearest sign that the cover-up isn't about national security anymore. It's about protecting reputations and avoiding accountability, possibly even criminal liability. The source was very specific about the retaliation against David Grush.
A decorated intelligence official coming forward through proper channels.
Yes, following the law, fulfilling his duty as he saw it, and what happens? Within 24 hours of his story breaking, elements within the intelligence community illegally leak his private, sensitive medical information, his PTSD history to the press.
A clear attempt to discredit him, to smear him.
A blatant illegal act. It's a high-pay violation. It's defamation. It's essentially being doxxed by your own government for trying to tell the truth through the system Congress set up.
And how does that even happen? How does that level of internal attack get addressed?
That's the scary part. Often it doesn't. The system protects its own. This shows that sometimes the biggest threat isn't a foreign spy agency. It's rogue elements inside our own intelligence community, willing to break laws, violate basic rights, just to keep the lid on, to avoid embarrassment. The enemy of transparency is internal.
Okay, let's shift gears now, away from the secrecy and the infighting, and towards the phenomena itself, the actual UAPs. The Pentagon boiled down their characteristics into the 5 observables, right?
Yes, these are the key markers that tell pilots and analysts, okay, this isn't a plane, it's not a balloon, it's not ours. The first one is just mind-blowing, instantaneous acceleration.
Give us the numbers on that. What kind of G-forces are we talking?
We're talking observations of objects pulling 2,000 to 3,000 Gs.
2 to 3,000 compared to what a human can take.
Right. A top fighter pilot, highly trained, might handle 9 Gs for a few seconds before blacking out. An F-16 aircraft, the airframe itself, starts to come apart around 17 Gs.
So thousands of Gs is...
It's physically nonsensical in our framework. Either these things are made of materials we can't even imagine, or they're manipulating inertia, manipulating gravity itself, so G-force doesn't even apply to the craft or anything inside it.
It's not just the speed, it's the way they move. Which brings us to number 2, hypersonic velocity.
Correct. Speeds way beyond Mach 5, sometimes clocked up near 13,000 miles per hour. But again, It's not just raw speed.
It's the maneuvers at those speeds. You mentioned the SR-71 Blackbird example.
Yeah, the SR-71, peak of human hypersonic flight, right? If it's cruising at Mach 3, it needs to make a basic right turn. The turning radius would cover half the state of Ohio. It needs that much space.
Whereas these UAPs,
they're doing Mach 5, Mach 10, maybe more, and they execute instant right-angle turns, 180-degree reversals, stop on a dime, start again instantly. It violates everything we know about momentum and inertia for objects with mass.
Okay, third, observable. Low observability. Hard to see, hard to track.
Yeah, they often lack wings, tails, visible engines, any normal control surfaces, and they mess with our sensors. Radar gets nonsensical returns, meaning the signal bounce doesn't match any known object shape or behavior. Or worse, they actively jam or spoof the radar, making it think they're somewhere else, or not there at all. They seem to control how they appear or disappear across the electromagnetic spectrum.
Number 4 is the one that really stretches the brain. Transmedium travel.
This is huge. The ability to fly in the air, dive deep underwater, maybe even go into space, all without changing form or losing performance.
Our attempts at multi-domain vehicles are always clunky compromises.
Always. A seaplane is okay in the air, okay on the water, but not great at either. These UAPs show zero compromise. They transition seamlessly, instantly, from atmosphere to ocean, maintaining incredible speed and maneuverability in both.
Which leads us right into the deep end, literally, the unidentified submerged objects, the USOs.
And this is where our own ignorance is staggering. We know so little about our own planet's oceans.
Less than 15% of the ocean floor mapped properly.
It's true. Yeah. We genuinely have better maps of the moon and Mars than we do of the deep oceans right here on Earth. This is a vast hidden realm, plenty of places to hide. Potentially.
Which makes those documented USO encounters even more startling. Like that story about the missile tests in the Caribbean back in the 90s.
Yeah, that was a routine but highly sensitive test.
Yeah.
Recovering a dummy cruise missile after a test flight. They had a Navy frogman dangling from a helicopter, ready to attach a recovery line to the missile floating on the surface.
Standard procedure.
Totally standard. Except the crew, including intelligence officers watching, saw the water around the missile suddenly start churning like crazy. Violently.
And then
this black, perfectly round object just surged up out of the water, grabbed the missile, a piece of sophisticated, potentially nuclear-capable hardware right off the surface, and then just plunged back down into the depths. Gone.
It just stole a missile in front of Navy personnel.
That's the report. The source confirmed. That recoverable missile, to this day, remains unaccounted for. That's not a light anomaly. That's a physical interaction, an intervention, and theft of military hardware by an unknown.
And then there's the classified video footage, the one near the oil rig. That sounds like it comes with more data.
It does. This isn't just eyewitness, it's video, corroborated by other sensor data, sonar, radar, maybe hyperspectral. It shows this huge, perfectly round, disc-shaped object, black, cruising past an offshore oil derrick.
How huge are we talking?
Get this. The object's diameter was confirmed to be larger than the oil derrick itself.
Bigger than an oil rig, underwater, and moving how fast?
Assessed speed was between 450 and 550 knots underwater.
Wait, 450 knots underwater. Our fastest subs struggle to do what, 40, 45 knots?
Exactly. Our fastest torpedoes might hit 200 knots, but they do it by creating a gas bubble around themselves. Cavitation is incredibly noisy and leaves a massive wake. This thing, 450, maybe 550 knots. And the source specifically said, no waves, no surface disturbance, no detectable noise.
It's like the water isn't even there for it. It's moving through a different reality.
It implies total mastery over the medium. Not just good hydrodynamics, but maybe manipulating space-time or the water itself at a fundamental level. And this wasn't a one-off blip. Government teams analyzed this, cross-referenced it. We know Navy sonar has tracked other massive objects, bigger than our biggest boomer subs, doing these kinds of speeds deep underwater.
It leads back to that idea. If you truly understand the physics, the medium air, water, rock might just be irrelevant.
That's the mind-bending implication, isn't it? If you've cracked reality at that level, the constraints we live by just dissolve. The source mentioned scientists speculating these things could potentially travel through solid matter, through mountains, not around them. They might just be indifferent to our physical world.
Okay, let's talk about the craft themselves, the physical forms. There's this recurring shape, the egg shape, that the intelligence community seems familiar with.
Yeah, the egg-shaped vehicle isn't new to them at all. Apparently, scientists see it as almost nature's perfect solution for a vehicle.
Why an egg?
Think about it. It's incredibly strong structurally, distributes stress evenly. It maximizes internal volume for its surface area. It's naturally aerodynamic or hydrodynamic, reducing drag. It's just a really robust, efficient shape for carrying sensitive contents, whether that's technology or biology.
But the real giveaway, the thing that screams intelligence, is the language, the confirmed presence of writing.
This is huge. The source confirms spending significant time researching ancient script, hieroglyphics, and symbology, specifically because symbols, runes, actual engraved markings were found on some craft, either recovered or observed up close.
They saw writing on the hull.
Engraved script, captured on high-resolution imagery or during analysis of materials, it was described as pretty undeniable.
And the implication of finding writing, what does that tell us?
It tells us a lot. Writing is formalized communication. It means conveying a specific idea, thought, a directive through a visual medium to see and interpret those engravings.
They need eyes, or something like eyes. They need to perceive light in the electro-optical spectrum, just like we do.
Exactly. It suggests a shared way of interacting with reality, at least visually. It implies they might not be so fundamentally alien, so dissimilar from us, that we have zero common ground in how we perceive and communicate information. That's a profound connection.
Okay, this is the perfect bridge to the really sensitive stuff. Non-human intelligence, the NHI interface, and the biological side effects. Let's start with psionics, the human interface.
Right. Psionics in this context is about the connection between brain function, consciousness, and technology. Things like remote influence, telepathy, maybe direct neural control. And this is in sci-fi for the intelligence world.
The U.S. government has a documented history here, right? Stargate, Grill Flame.
Absolutely. Programs like Stargate, Grill Flame, Centerlane, these are declassified facts. They use remote viewing, essentially employing psychic techniques for espionage, and found statistically significant results, even if they couldn't fully explain the how.
So they knew there was something there.
They knew there was something there. And now, fast forward, we see the tech catching up. We're building the interface ourselves.
You mean like neural implants? Controlling things with thought.
Precisely. Look at the advances. People with paralysis using brain implants to fly drones, control robotic arms, even play complex video games like Call of Duty, purely with thought patterns, translating neural signals directly into external action.
So if we're already going down that road, limited as we are,
Then it stands to reason that a vastly more advanced intelligence would have perfected it. Why bother with clunky physical controls if you can interface directly, mind to machine, or even mind to phenomenon? If their tech bypasses inertia, their interface probably bypasses physical buttons too. It's likely psionic.
which connects directly to those rumors at ATIP about psionic teams.
Yes. The source confirmed hearing those rumors and suggested they were likely more than just rumors. The idea was the government was actually trying to use people with specific cognitive abilities
Human brains.
to try and interface with these UAPs, with the NHI phenomenon, to communicate, maybe understand, maybe even influence it. The logic, from a black budget perspective, is kind of undeniable. If you had this unknown, powerful phenomenon, you throw everything you've got at it. Right, including the potential power of the human mind itself. It would be almost irresponsible not to try.
Okay, so if there are intelligences, NHI, what might they be like? We need to get past the little green men idea.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's way too limiting, too anthropocentric. The universe is huge, weird, complex. They could be from another star system, sure.
Right.
But they could also be from inner space, other dimensions, maybe, different timelines.
Or they could be native to Earth, just hidden.
Exactly. Maybe they're just as natural to our environment as we are, but we just haven't had the tools or the framework to perceive them until now. Think about microorganisms.
Oh, but you mentioned that before. Invisible until microscopes came along.
And they're everywhere. They dominate the planet's biomass. They were here all along, running the show in many ways, totally unseen by us. NHI could be similar, existing on a scale or in a spectrum or in a state that's just outside our normal perception. Too big, too small, too fast, too slow. Different energy state. Who knows?
Which leads to the really unnerving possibility. Camouflage, assimilation. They might not just be out there, they might be here, blending in.
And this isn't necessarily sinister like an invasion movie. Think biologically. Camouflage is a survival strategy all through nature.
The source used that panda suit analogy.
Yeah, zookeepers wearing fuzzy panda suits to handle newborn pandas so they don't frighten or imprint improperly on the little ones. It's about minimizing disruption to the native environment or the native creatures.
Us being the native creatures in this scenario.
Right. Or think about parasites. Some parasites have evolved incredible mimicry to hide from the host's immune system, looking just like normal tissue. They don't do that out of malice, it's just evolutionary pressure for survival.
So an advanced NHI wanting to observe us without causing mass panic or a hostile reaction.
Blending in, looking like us, or manipulating our perceptions so we don't notice them would be a very logical, very non-human, biological kind of strategy. It supports what the source suggested, that some NHI might look a lot like us. It might just be practical camouflage to avoid freaking out the locals.
Okay, this is difficult, but we have to address the darker side, the adverse effects, the harm caused to humans and animals. Let's start with the animal mutilations.
Yeah, the cattle mutilations, sometimes horses too. It's deeply disturbing. But the consistency in the reports, often from law enforcement or veterinarians, is striking.
What are the consistent details?
Surgical precision.
Yeah.
Organs, eyes, tongues, reproductive tissue removed with clean cuts. Often there's evidence of cauterization, blood vessels sealed instantly by heat or energy, meaning little to no blood at the scene. No tracks around the carcass. A USDA vet was quoted saying, "Something is doing this and we're very concerned. It's not predators, it's not random human acts."
But you drew a really uncomfortable comparison to how humans treat animals.
We have to be cautious with language like mutilation, because it assigns intent, usually malicious intent. But look at us. Humans slaughter billions of animals every year for food, science, materials. We perform procedures on them. We don't typically call our industrial farming or lab work mutilation. We call it processing or research.
So it's possible the NHI are doing something similar, sampling, studying from their perspective.
It's possible. It might be a clinical, detached biological sampling process that seems horrific to us because we're empathizing with the animal, but to them, it's just data collection. Using technology that's incredibly precise and efficient, like lasers for cutting and cauterizing. We can't assume malice without knowing the context.
But the human injuries, that feels different. That's documented harm to our own people.
That's the critical line. This isn't speculation anymore, it's confirmed. U.S. government personnel, military members, intelligence officers, contractors have suffered real, documented injuries from encounters with UAPs or related phenomena.
And they're getting official recognition for it.
Yes, they are now on full medical disability, paid by the government, specifically because of injuries sustained during service related to this phenomenon. The government itself has acknowledged the link in these cases.
What kind of injuries are documented? You mentioned Dr. Gary Nolan's research.
Dr. Nolan at Stanford studied some of these individuals, people who had close encounters or handled alleged materials. His medical research found objective physical evidence, specific types of brain damage, observable lesions, scarring, particularly in areas like the basal ganglia, which controls motor functions, cognition, things like that. It wasn't psychological. It was measurable physical damage to the brain.
Caused by what? Some kind of energy exposure?
That's the conclusion. Exposure to some unknown energy source associated with the phenomenon, which brings up that crucial question. Intent versus byproduct.
Were they deliberately zapped, or did they just get too close to something incredibly powerful?
The source suggested thinking about it like standing too close to a jet engine intake or sticking your hand in a powerful microwave emitter. The engine or the microwave isn't trying to hurt you, but the energy fields they generate are inherently dangerous to human biology if you get too close.
So the injury could just be an unfortunate consequence of proximity to technology operating on principles we don't understand, principles that happen to be harmful to us.
That's one possibility, yeah. The NHI might be operating in ways that are just incidentally dangerous to our biological makeup, like walking through a high radiation zone without realizing it.
Not all cases fit that accidental exposure model, do they? There are reports of seemingly deliberate targeting.
That's where it gets genuinely alarming. The prime example cited is the Colares incident in Brazil, 1977-78. This wasn't just a few people. It was widespread panic over months, involving thousands of villagers, and it led to a major Brazilian Air Force investigation called Operation Preto.
What happened in Colares? What did people report?
They reported seeing UAPs, often emitting bright, focused beams of light. People described being chased by these lights, and when the beams hit them, they felt intense pain, burning sensations, dizziness, weakness. Doctors examined many victims and documented injuries, consistent with directed energy exposure burns, neurological symptoms.
So that sounds less like accidental proximity and more like active engagement.
It certainly seems that way. Whether it was hostile intent or some kind of terrifying medical or biological examination using energy beams, we don't know. But it was clearly a deliberate application of energy onto the population, causing physical harm. That's documented, investigated fact. It wasn't just incidental.
Okay, so we've covered the tech, the potential intelligence, the biological effects. It all leads to this final massive question. How do we even process this? It seems like human perception is the real barrier here.
Absolutely. We have to start by admitting how little of reality we actually perceive directly. Our senses are incredibly limited. Take vision, what we call visible light, the colors we see.
It's just a tiny sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Right. A minuscule sliver, about 0.35%. Think of reality as this enormous spectrum, from long radio waves way down at one end, up past visible light, UV, X-rays, to gamma rays at the other. Our eyes are only tuned to that tiny little rainbow band in the middle.
Everything else, infrared, radio waves, microwaves, it's all around us all the time, but we're completely blind to it without technology.
Exactly. Most of reality is happening right here, right now, completely outside our sensory awareness. We need instruments, radio telescopes, night vision goggles, Geiger counters, just to detect the parts of our own physical universe that our bodies miss. And that limitation is compounded by the issue of scale.
We're stuck in the middle, aren't we? Too big to grasp the quantum world easily, too small to really comprehend cosmic distances.
Perfectly put. We exist in this narrow little band of scale. Compared to the size of an atom, we're enormous. Compared to the size of the visible universe, billions of light years across blast, we're practically nothing. An infinitesimally small speck, as the source described it. Grasping the truly vast, or the truly tiny, is incredibly difficult for our brains, which evolved to deal with medium-sized objects moving at medium speeds.
And then there are the fundamental aspects of reality itself, like quantum mechanics, that just defy our everyday intuition about space and time.
We have to accept that nonlinear reality isn't just theory, it's how the universe works at DL levels. Quantum entanglement is the classic example. It's proven fact. Two particles can be linked, instantaneously influencing each other no matter how far apart they are across the room or across the galaxy.
In that quantum reality, distance is meaningless. Time might be too.
Right, space and time become irrelevant in that context. So if these UAPs, these NHI, have figured out how to operate based on those deeper nonlinear principles,
then traveling vast distances instantly or manipulating space-time isn't magic. It's just exploiting the real physics we haven't mastered yet.
Exactly. It forces us to recalibrate the way we think about things. We have to try and move beyond our ingrained 3D sequential view of reality and open ourselves to possibilities where location and duration aren't the absolute constraints we think they are.
Facing all this, our limited senses, our tiny place in the cosmos, the weirdness of reality can be overwhelming. It leads to that feeling of finding meaning in the vastness. How do we avoid just feeling insignificant?
It's a natural reaction. That's why the source urged people to look at the pale blue dot photograph, that famous image Voyager 1 took of Earth from billions of miles away.
Just a tiny speck of light in a sunbeam.
Yeah, and Carl Sagan's words about it are so powerful. Everything that has ever happened to human history, every joy, every sorrow, every war, every invention, all of it occurred on that tiny, fragile dot.
So the feeling of insignificance can flip into something else.
That's the pivot. Realizing how small and alone we might be in the cosmos doesn't have to lead to despair. It can also highlight just how incredibly precious and unique that little blue dot is, how special consciousness is. It can foster this profound sense of shared identity and a protective instinct for our only home. We're all crewmates on Spaceship Earth.
Which connects directly to the idea of sociological evolution. That realization should change how we interact with each other, but our old programming gets in the way.
Our old programming is tribalism, that deep-seated instinct to identify with and fiercely protect my group, my family, my tribe, my nation, my religion against the other.
It helped us survive for millennia when resources were scarce and threats were everywhere.
Absolutely necessary for survival back then. Build walls, circle the wagons, trust only your own. But now
it's the biggest threat to our survival.
The source argued, it's the one thing stopping our evolution to the next phase of human reality. In a world facing global challenges and potentially encountering intelligence far beyond our own, clinging to those ancient divisions, that constant infighting and competition, it's evolutionary suicide. We need to transcend it.
We need to find a way to define our tribe as humanity.
Exactly, to shift our loyalty to the species, to the planet, to realize that cooperation and communication are now more critical for survival than competition and conflict. That's the evolutionary leap required.
And the source seemed to place some hope in the new generation for making that leap.
Yes, there was a sense that Previous generations, shaped by the Cold War and older forms of nationalism, kind of botched this conversation, got stuck in fear and secrecy. But younger people today,
They grew up connected globally, digitally native.
right, they're often more open to new ideas, new principles, new perspectives. The internet has dissolved some traditional barriers. There's maybe a greater potential for global consciousness, for collective action, for demanding transparency than ever before. The conditions might finally be right for this societal shift.
So ultimately, the goal of sharing all this information, this deep dive, it's not just to present facts, is it?
No, not at all.
Mm.
This whole topic, UAPs, NHI, it touches on the biggest questions we can ask. The most important things that humanity has ever asked for, as the source put it. Questions about our origins, our purpose, life and death, our place in the universe, religion, philosophy, science, it all converges here.
So our role here isn't to give answers.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Our role, the source's role, is just to provide the data, the suppressed information, the different perspectives. The really crucial step, the most important part, is what you, the listener, do with it. You have to interpret it. You have to ask, what does this data suggest to me? Don't ever give up that sacred right you have to think.
Okay, let's try to wrap this up. We've covered a massive amount of ground, from the history of secrecy and the illegal retaliation against whistleblowers like Grush.
To the hard physics, impossible acceleration, transmedium travel, USOs outrunning our fastest subs.
Then the potential for psionic interfaces, the reality of biological harm, both animal and human, including specific brain injuries.
And finally, placing it all in that philosophical context, our limited perception, the need to outgrow tribalism, the challenge of finding meaning.
What's the final synthesis? What's the core takeaway from wrestling with all this?
I think the source put it best. This whole pursuit, understanding UAPs, NHI, whatever is out there, it inevitably forces us back to understanding what's in here, inside ourselves, inside our society.
We can't deal with the external until we fix the internal.
Pretty much. This whole phenomenon holds up a giant mirror. It forces us to confront our own flaws, our fear, our aggression, our tendency to deceive, our tribalism. We have to take responsibility for that, individually and collectively, and try to be better. That self-reflection, that internal work, that might actually be the key. Maybe we need to evolve first before we can truly engage with whatever else is out there.
So the real threat might just be our own reaction, our own inability to handle the reality.
It's a very real possibility. Which leads to a final thought, something for you to chew on after this deep dive.
Okay, leave us with something provocative.
If you assume there's an advanced intelligence out there, maybe one that's been observing us for a long time, if it can analyze our history, our patterns, predict our likely reactions, almost like a grandmaster analyzing a chess game, what's the one move humanity could make together that isn't predictable? What collective action, what shift in consciousness would be so unexpected, so outside our usual tribal game, that it sources a different response from them? What's the move that changes the board entirely? Something to think about.